Dawi fans rejoice. I think you've just found your new super weapon. Thunderbarge is one of 3 new centerpiece units coming in Thrones of Decay, alongside the Marienburg Landship for the Empire and Toad Dragon for Nurgle. And in terms of raw killing power, there are very few units I have ever seen that can unleash as much devastation so consistently and so quickly as this new airship. It is an army killer. Super fun and super devastating, the kind of unit that will make you want to play dwarfs. Equipped with a pair of swivel cannons, crack team of Grudgeraker shotgunners, bomb racks beneath its mighty frame, and a huge harpoon gun that functions like a magic missile for sniping out expensive targets, it truly does live up to its reputation as the apex of dwarf technological marvels, despite all its quirks and imperfections. So we're going to spend this video showing it off in all its glory, talking about its capabilities, what it can do in practical scenarios, and how to potentially counter it, which isn't as simple as it sounds. You'd think, oh yeah, just shoot it, right? Or maybe send some flyers after it. But in my experience so far, it's rarely that straightforward. Now, I'm not allowed to show any battles of myself playing as the new units yet, but I am allowed to show battles against them. And I've been punished by this thing quite a few times over the last few days, so if nothing else, it should be quite entertaining to watch my armies make explode. Look at its stats. The Dwarf Thunderbarge is a whopping 2,800 gold, pushing Shredder of Lustria tier, one of the most expensive single entities in the game, and for that price you'd certainly hope to have a ton of killing power, which it certainly does. It is functionally unbreakable, not technically so, but with 100 plus leadership I have not seen it rout yet, and it has 13,000 HP with 120 armor. Not easy to kill at all, not with missiles and not in melee. As expected, terrible melee attack, terrible melee defense, and slow speed of all kinds, from turning to acceleration to straight line sprinting. 30 speed is the speed of a dwarf hoofing it on foot. That's terrible, right? Wrong, because in reality, this beast moves at 90 speed, not 30, with an active ability called Thunderburner. The cost of 25 to 50 DPS dealt in self-damage, it can turn on the jets and maneuver like a fighter plane, outrunning dragons, eagles, bloodthirsters, and all sorts of other flying creatures. In theory, 95 speed is faster than 90 speed, which means lots of flyers should be able to catch it. But when the difference is that incremental, it can actually just completely outrun them before their animation finishes, which means they oftentimes don't land an attack. Spear of Grungni is a vicious harpoon gun mounted on the front of the balloon, used for dealing heavy burst damage against high-value targets from 300 range. And though it says it has a range of 1, the stats are a bit weird and misleading because it has like 6 different weapon components and they all have their own ranges and rolls. Grudgeraker shotgun teams on the port and starboard side will shoot to about 90 range or so at a really impressive clip. They fire not like machine guns, but almost like that, like semi-auto rifles, dealing consistent and accurate AP damage that racks up very quickly. Swivel cannons can fire maybe up to 200 range, with a roughly 250 degree fire arc that covers the front of the ship, enemies directly below and even slightly behind. And when it flies over the top of units, it will automatically drop volleys of gyro bombs that will paste friend and foe alike. So everything on this ship, in terms of its shooting anyway, is completely automated. You don't have to issue attack orders, you don't have to release bombs, it will do it all for you. All you need to do is position to maximize the carnage it can unleash, and goddamn, it can unleash a lot, which means keeping it moving so it can fire down the length of enemy formations with the swivel guns, and lining up for bombing runs while the Grudgerakers continue to pour in that fire. To get a general picture of what even the AI can do with it, this was a quick demonstration I set up with the High Elves, Alathanar, bunch of elite infantry, and 4 Lothern Sea Guard against a Dwarf Horde, Malachi, and the Thunderbarge. And it racks up 300 kills and 3,500 damage value in 2.5 minutes, while leaving Thunderburner on for literally no reason and getting shot by Alathanar and 4 units of archers. Ends the battle with 400 kills and 4,200 damage value. Also has a pretty sick death animation as it plummets from the sky. First to try his hand against this behemoth was Epidemius, the Tallyman of Nurgle and the new free legendary lord. Played maybe 4 or 5 battles against the Thunderbarge so far, and a few using it myself, and I've got a fairly good grasp on what it can do at this point, but obviously some of these were very early games. Countering it is going to be a learning experience, and you can kind of see me try and adapt and try new things throughout the course of this video. It's probably one of the scariest elements about it right now when it comes to army selection, that you have to game plan for it. You have to bring counters that maybe wouldn't be so good against a normal dwarf build, because if you don't, you will freaking die. So just the threat, the possibility that it's on the field changes how you compose your armies, and that can give the dwarfs a leg up before battles even join. As I said, very few units in the trilogy that can do what the Thunderbarge can right now. Epidemius just deep-throated a big ol' spear of Grungni from across the map, waddling, trundling forward. He has some pretty cool abilities. Epidemic Outburst is his escape, deals damage and massively slows opponents. Tallyman's Blades is his summon. Exalted Plague Bears can appear in an opponent's back line, which can be very strong, especially when they open up with those biological grenades. And then the Sands of Sickness is a chain hex that reflects melee damage and improves vigor for allies, while lowering speed and melee defense for enemies. And that can spread up to 5 times. We're going to go a lot more in-depth on the other new units soon for the Dawi. Have a ton of replays for the Empire, Nurgle, and the Dwarfs, of course. Video ideas to get to, but I have multiple replays to show in this one. It focuses, obviously, on the Thunderbarge, so trying to keep it fairly short and sweet. Not going to go too in-depth on the specifics for each of those new units, like the Doomseekers, Goblin Hewer, and all that. Now, I would not recommend a full demon army against the dwarfs. I don't think for any of the faction that's really the play. Maybe you can get away with that with Slanesh, but certainly not with Nurgle. A Plague Bearer front line does not have the speed or killing power required against traditional armored dwarf play, but it's not traditional dwarf play here. It's actually not going to be the worst thing, because the Dawi barely brought armor. It's a Doomseeker and Slayer Pirate Corps, with a Grudgeraker Regiment of Renown in the rear, and a Demon Slayer leading the army. So with that Hound ambush coming in from behind, Pox Riders supporting the main assault, and Epidemius summoning Exalted Elites onto the battlefield, then dropping those Sands of Sickness, this initial push is going to be pretty decent. A lot of good engagements for Nurgle. They're making their way into the meaty part of their center, but all the while that Thunderbarge is on high, and it is blowing the shit out of a lot of stuff. And the only thing Nurgle has to kill it are Exalted Plague Bearer throws from the biological grenades, or the Plague Ridden on the Rotfly. And he does have 450 weapon strength, majority AP, so that's not the worst thing in the world. Right now, just dropping the Afterburn and running for his life, and you can see we got 13,000 HP, 25 to 50 DPS is just not a lot of self-damage to literally escape Bloodthirsters or Greater Demons. Anything that might actually be able to kill it in melee. That's totally worth it. Every single time, you can kind of forget about leaving it on and not really have to worry about it, because it will do the majority of its damage in those first 3 or 4 minutes anyway. So as long as it stays alive that long, it's probably going to get its value back if it just sits on top of an army and it shoots. Every single time I've seen it used so far, it pays for itself. Just blowing stuff up with those cannons, those swivel guns, and those Grudge Rakers on the flanks. But obviously not being pressured very much right now. Not sure when the Dwarfs are going to bring the Thunderbarge, so sometimes you don't want to commit too heavily to trying to kill it. And this is a learning experience right now to see what it can do if you don't put a bunch of emphasis on taking it out early. So far, Nurgle appears to be doing just fine. They are in the lead. Bounce of Power is in their favor. But with only the Rotfly and the Plague Ridden atop it exerting any influence over the skies, the airship can just start laying down the law, dropping the hammer with this Black Powder Bonanza. And the Hound ambush from behind utterly failed, because Slayer Pirates and the ROR Grudge Rakers aren't like other ranged troops. They will crush dogs in melee. So even now that Epidemius and the Pox Riders are atop them, Slayer Pirates can hold on pretty damn well here. And they're going to do that. They're going to buy some time for the airship to really start shifting things back in the Dwarfs' favor. It's now above the Exalted Plague Bears and just laying into them with those swivel guns. And as they move in to throw some more noxious grenades, they're going to take the full brunt of a massive Grudge Raker volley and more punishment from on high. 3,500 HP, not going to last very long. They will crumble out, and very quickly, Nurgle is losing steam. This has not been a long battle, man. The entire demonic army seems to crumble out within 3.5 minutes. So it's mostly leaving the Plague-Ridden, Epidemius, and a handful of Exalted Plague Bearers, few Pox Riders as well. Slayer army is in tatters too. The Doomseekers, the Miners, and the remnants of the Slayer Pirates, all taking a ton of damage. But yeah, the Thunderbarge is up to 3,300 value. Has earned silver chevrons. I believe it started this game with only 1 bronze chevron, so it's already earned 3, and Epidemius is doing what he can to keep them in the fight. He's got a lot of HP, almost 8,000, so he's a tank lord for sure. They don't have a lot of single target damage left on the Dwarf roster, but the Thunderbarge with the swivel guns actually deal some pretty good DPS in that way. Already used the magic missile from across the map earlier in the game, that Spear of Grungni. Rotfly trying to get out of the fire arc of those ROR Grudge Rakers. Doesn't want to take a point-blank volley from the shotguns, because that's where you'll really find yourself devastated. Pox Riders are into their rear, but the Dragon Slayer, rather Demon Slayer Lord, is supporting. Looks like the Pox Riders are about to crumble out. That will leave the Legendary Lord and the Hero as the only units remaining. They should be able to clear out some of the stragglers and hit them with some streams of corruption from the flank, but they cannot take down the Thunderbarge. And Epidemius is going to receive its full attention from those two cannons up front. Rotfly and the Plague Ridden will fall momentarily as well. Grudge Rakers smacking the Herald of Nurgle in the face. And 200 kills, double silver chevrons, 5,000 value for the Dawi Thunderbarge in this battle, and certainly carried the day. So we got more replays to show you. Khorne 1 and a Chaos Dwarf 1. We got 206 kills, double silver chevrons, 5,000 value almost. Freakishly good in a battle where we didn't invest that much in trying to kill it. Now, let's play one where we do, where we know it's coming and try our best to kill it before it can utterly devastate our entire army. So, Regiment of Renown, Bloodthirster, bonus versus large, and the Gore Shell damage resist. Khorne's Bloody Fist is kind of the archetype for unit that I would expect would hard counter a Thunderbarge. Gets into melee, rips it up in seconds, it dies. Spear of Grungni across the map, just missed. Nicely dodged by the flyers there. Thunderbarge is 2,800 gold, so the supporting cast for the Dwarfs will be lessened, of course. Not going to see as many infantry on the field for them. Relatively elite army for Khorne as well. Only 2 Marauders in the front ranks. 2 Chosen of Khorne. Really good unit against the Dwarfs. They'll rip up pretty much anything on their roster in melee. Herald of Khorne on a Jug, and the Knights of the Brazen Throne. Very expensive unit, can be a bit risky to bring just because the Dwarfs have the slows and the AP that can kind of focus fire your units down. But if they stay alive, they can rip up like half the Dawi army, especially most of their range play. The Thunderbarge is that big question. How do you kill it? And you would certainly think 2 Furies and the Bloodthirster can handle that task, especially because the Dwarfs don't have a lot of ranged firepower on the ground below to support it. As long as those Trollhammer torpedoes are shut down, the Slayer Pirates don't get really good volleys in, it should be fine. So Chosen of Khorne already down to half HP, getting bombed into oblivion. Brutal start for them, but not entirely unexpected. If they're getting shot, that means Fleshhounds of Khorne and the Juggernauts are going to have free reign to charge in from the rear, and that is what they are going to do, straight into the Slayer Pirates to shut down their shooting, and the Dwarf Warriors in the back taking a big-time charge, losing about 1/4 of their health. So the Furies and Bloodthirster are on target. They are surrounding, or attempting to surround, the Thunderbarge, and it has activated its afterburner. And this part is interesting, because it's at 90 speed, which is less than Furies and Bloodthirsters, but you'll notice that they are not getting any attacks off whatsoever. So you're trading that 25 to 50 DPS for not getting chunked by 500 weapon strength to pop. It's a pretty big deal, and that does allow the Slayer Pirates to get some shots in on the Furies and clear some of those out. Furies now going into melee to shut down the Trollhammer torpedoes. Doomseekers and Chosen fighting it out in melee. I believe that is the Brotherhood of Grimnir. Really cool unit. We'll get more focused on them in a couple replays soon. And a few of the Dwarf units on the periphery have been picked off. Skull Crushers of Khorne are circling and waiting for a good opportunity to strike. But man, they are getting chunked by those Grudge Rakers and cannons on high. Already down to 2/3 health, and that will continue to drop. Gonna get a really good flank charge into the Brotherhood of Grimnir to free up the Chosen and collapse into the center. But already that Thunderbarge is, I mean, it is killing the entire Khornate army almost single-handedly. I mean, the Fleshhounds of Khorne were killed off by the Slayer Pirates, and the Trollhammer torpedoes got some good volleys in on the Furies, but other than that, almost all the killing power of this army belongs to the Thunderbarge. And in the span of about 3 minutes, oh my, dude, look at this, man. That is insane. Knights of the Brazen Throne were half HP 15 seconds ago. They're dead now. They're just dead. Khorne's Bloody Fist has been on the Thunderbarge the entire game. and it doesn't care. It just afterburns and ignores it. Hasn't really been taking damage from it at all. Almost all the damage it's taken has been self-inflicted from that afterburn, which again, it doesn't matter if you're taking afterburn damage if you're killing the entire enemy army in the span of 3.5, 4 minutes, right? Like, it doesn't matter at all. You will take that trade every single time. So, it's that Silver Chevrons again. It was, well, we tried to hard counter it here with the Bloodthirster and with the Furies, and it did not go very well. Killed the entire army. We're going to concede. It's over. Let's try a game where we do successfully counter it and talk about what that means. Confluence of factors there for sure. I did not play that perfectly by any stretch of the imagination. And Khorne is ass right now. One of the worst factions in a multiplayer currently. Thunderbarge is doing what it should do, which is be very powerful, kill lots of stuff as a floating bastion. If the Afterburn is going to allow it to outrun Bloodthirsters and Furies and other flyers while taking minimal to zero damage in melee, then the Afterburn needs to be way more punishing on the self-damage. My elite Regiment of Renowned Bloodthirster got 900 value in the time it took the Thunderbarge to get 4,000 and essentially kill all my most important units. I think we all agree a Greater Demon and a Horde of Furies should be a hard counter in melee to an airship. In its current form, I think there are going to be some factions that realistically can't do much to counter the Thunderbarge if it's in the hands of a competent opponent. The AI doesn't know how or when to use Afterburn. It doesn't seem to do a good job of positioning the airship so that everything can actually fire. So if the AI gets their hands on these in the campaign, it might still hurt you, but it's probably not going to like solo your army. If it's crewed by a competent pilot, however, it's a different story. And like, I don't know what Khorne or Slaanesh is supposed to do against it right now. Like, it will kill you. And it'll kill you just by sitting there. Now, this was a Chaos Dwarf versus Malachi Makaisen game. And this one was interesting. So Malachi buffs up artillery. He's going to give them some really nice stuff like additional accuracy, range, and missile damage. And you can see my magma cannon is just getting absolutely destroyed from downtown. Take a look right here. We got the Artillery Master and Eyes of Grungni. Reload skill, range, accuracy. Just instant kill on the magma cannon, which is pretty sick to watch because there aren't very many lords or heroes that actually buff up artillery in this game. People don't typically bring engineers to like make their artillery better, at least in multiplayer. But even in campaign, it's not really that common of a strat. So to just see those cannons utterly decimate one of my most important units was really interesting to watch and very impressive. So here the Thunderbarge is moving up. I have brought the Deathstreaker rocket launcher to counter it and some blunderbuss, which are fairly common pick against the Dawi anyway. And it is moving too far forward right now. Thunderbarge should realistically be further back above its own artillery, just killing off all this infantry as it comes in. No real reason for it to sit above the blunderbuss. It will be able to land on top of them, drop some bombs, and pretty much kill off an entire unit. But it could easily stay out of range of these shotguns and not be getting a focus fired out the ass. And then the only thing that would really be applying a lot of pressure would be the Deathstreaker rocket launcher itself. And maybe the Baal Taurus, which is out on the flank right now and basically just trying to take some fire from the cannons while the Skullcrackers move in on each flank. See one moving in on the Dwarf right flank and left flank, moving through the Slayers and trying to dive into the cannons, which have just been absolutely brutal this game. The cannon upgrades for Malachi Makaisen really turn what's already a pretty solid unit into a fantastic one. Not even missing shots from across the map. You can see they took a chunk out of the Baal Taurus and the Sorcerer Lord atop it, dealt a bunch of damage to the Skullcrackers on the way in, and of course instantly deleted that magma cannon. But yeah, the Thunderbarge bit off way more than it could chew here. It could have done a lot more, I think, for the Dwarfs if it had just sat above its own army and not moved into range of the blunderbuss. And now it is going to get brought down. 2 HP left. Still managed to get 200 kills in that short push over the top of the Chaos Dwarf army. A lot of that this time was on slaves, though, not giving up so much elite infantry to it as Khorne did in the last replay. And the crew will be sent flying to the earth below. Entire blimp explodes. It's all on fire. Really cool death animation. And now the Chaos Dwarfs are kind of into the cookie jar. The Skullcrackers and the Baal Taurus are right where they need to be. Big time Purple Sun Azirius, and doing everything they can really to shut down that can play and get in on top of Malachi Makaisen. So, in my opinion, Obviously, still incredibly early. I don't have any specific suggestions yet, but just general vibes and ideas on how I feel like the unit should play. In my opinion, the Thunderbarge should be a powerful, even devastating unit that can lay down a crazy barrage of fire and punish you heavily if you don't play against it right, or tailor your build to countering it. I think the damage output of it right now might even be correct, although, again, kind of hard to tell this early. But I think it is lacking some of the unreliability it's supposed to have in the lore, and which is the main reason why it hasn't been adopted in a widespread manner for the dwarfs. And one of the easier ways to replicate that unreliability would be much more impactful afterburn damage. Right now, it's not really a meaningful choice. The answer is yes. Are you being chased by something? Yes, you're going to turn it on, and no, you are not going to care about the self-damage. It's just not enough for you to notice it or care about it, when the alternative is, oh, I'm going to get eaten by a Bloodthirster and Furies, right? Because with 13,000 HP, you can literally just keep it on for the majority of the battle, running away from greater demons and griffins and dragons and eagles, and the whole time it's firing and just obliterating your army. And it can obliterate your army in like 3 or 4 minutes. That's brutal. I'm not sure that should be the design space it occupies. There need to be reasonable options for every faction to counter it, and from what I've seen so far, the 6 or 7 battles I've played, I think some factions are gonna simply not be able to, like, at all. That's how good the unit is. I want the Thunderbarge to be good, I want it to be super powerful, I want it to feel like a super weapon, but even the super weapons in this game need to have counters, and if the unit can just sit above an army and kill you, then if I tie it up in melee with really powerful troops, it needs to die, and right now it can simply outrun them, which I think is a little bit ridiculous. But it is a really interesting unit. It was always going to be super hard to balance, and I don't know that we're that far off where it should be. For now, I guess my suggestion is just to change Afterburn so that it really hurts with the self-damage if you want to go super fast and reposition, and otherwise, keep the damage output it has for now at least, and let's just see where the unit ends up. Because like I said, it should feel like a super weapon, it should feel like that tier 5 behemoth, it should hit like a truck and lay down withering fire and feel awesome to use. It just shouldn't be able to entirely ignore melee while it nukes the rest of your army. That element of it felt pretty bad in the battles I've played with and against it, and I've done the same to other people as well. A lot of other content creators are kind of on the same board as me. But again, lots to discuss. Not going to make any super hasty decisions so far. Hope you all enjoy this video. Lots of really cool stuff coming very soon.